Hey everyone, welcome back to Light Shine Desserts, where you can get your daily dose of baking, the Word of God, decorating, and much, much more. So today I'm going to be doing another order. This order was only like a week after the last one that I just did. So basically I'm going to be making 4 different things. The person asked for brownies, blondies, sugar cookies, chocolate chip cookies, and then we also did an additional cupcake pack because it was a family friend and it was for a party. So my mom said I should make that as well. So right now I'm currently doing the blondies, and it's my typical blondie recipe. I usually add like a little bit of white chocolate chips and rainbow sprinkles or some sort of sprinkles, but I try not to add too much just because I don't know what people think of it, but that's like my typical go-to for these. So if you've seen like cookie bars or brownies or even blondies that kind of had that like shiny top on top after it's baked, that's what these had. Like it had a really shiny top, and it wasn't like how it usually is before. Maybe just the way that I mixed it this time, because I usually don't use the whisk for dry ingredients, but I've started to do that a little bit more now. And it just, I guess, makes the blondie or the brownie or cookie bar a little bit more fudgier, which for me, I don't always like, just because that can make it appear underbaked, or it could even be underbaked. But it just also, like, I can tell once it's going to be like a fudgy type thing if it's like a really shiny top, because like right now I'm doing the brownies and I whisk the sugar with the eggs and the oil, and like usually the egg I do a little bit after that, so it just helps to like add more air and more of like the correct mixing when like making the brownies or the blondies. Now, I've said this many times before, I'm sure. I at least said it somewhere, but I've had struggles finding some good brownie recipes that are just sweet enough, but then still chocolatey, and I would say like a chewy texture that isn't like fudgy underbaked, if that makes sense. And this is currently like my blondie recipe that I've added some cocoa, like liquid, since I decided to use oil instead of butter to like help give it that brownie texture and flavor. And the thing about it, it's kind of an off and on thing because it generally works, but it's still kind of like I'm just doing it as I go, and I don't know if it's going to work out the exact same every single time. So I'm trying to find actual like good brownie recipes. But the next thing we are going to be making are the sugar cookies. So with these cookies, I made them before once or twice, and they did kind of like come out flatter than the picture shows, or like it's not like the best texture that I would want. So I tried the recipe using a different like type of leavening agent to see if that does anything, because there's a recipe that's the exact same, but again, it uses like cream of tartar and baking soda instead of like the baking powder. And then it also uses cornstarch, so that should help. But these ones, I mean, they still obviously taste good. I don't really remember. This was some weeks and months ago. But the next thing I'm going to be making are the chocolate chip cookies. So I do use a different cookie recipe, and this one uses oil. As you can see, I've added that in with the wet ingredients, and I'm using a whisk right now that I would use like my typical spatula. And even though it uses oil, it still like gives it that nice chocolate chip flavor, because I remember bringing these to school and people really seemed to like them. So I was like, okay, I might try using this if it continues to work out, because like my other cookie recipes, like the first time I make it or the second time, it might like be good, but then the next couple of times it might just like not look right, not bake right, or there's just something about the cookie itself. So I realize I am kind of stingy when I'm using like add-ins and things. Like I never really add that many chocolate chips or white chocolate chips or Oreos or whatever it is that I'm using in my cookies or in my bars. Like here, I did add a good amount, but like I know people add a lot more. All I know is now I don't add as much in the beginning because when it bakes, you can't always see the chocolate chips on top of the cookies. So then I add it in during the baking process just so then you can visibly see the chocolate chips on the top of the cookie. And then the next thing we're going to be making, this is my vanilla cupcake base. And then we're just going to add Oreos for the cookies and cream flavor, the cookies and cream look. I tried to have a good amount of like cookies in there just so then you can really like taste that little bit of chocolate in there. Something that I've been wondering is like, could I use golden Oreos and make like a golden cookies and cream cupcake as well as like a frosting? Because like, would that taste weird? Would that look weird? I don't know if I should experiment with that because obviously like in cookies it works, but maybe cupcakes. So I've been doing some recipe like testing again. So basically I made my vanilla cupcake batter by using like half of an egg because I can cut my recipe in half to where it makes 6 cupcakes and that uses 1 egg, but I wanted to see could I cut it in half again because usually when you look for small batch recipes, they might use like an egg white or sometimes even an egg yolk. So I really wanted to see could I like measure out like the egg in grams and then like cut out like half of the egg white, half of the egg yolk and do that. And it did actually kind of work. I think it did have the regular texture, but I also tried freezing it and seeing like would cupcakes frozen be good, like once it's thawed out, would it still be as moist, as soft, or would it be better or worse? And with my vanilla one, I did that with a big one and a mini one, and I think it still did work. It's just that the top was sticky, but that's obviously fine. And I have a red velvet one and a chocolate one in the freezer that I might try a couple days later. So it's just a good thing to know, like when I have extra cupcake batter, I could easily just be putting it into the freezer instead of just having leftover cupcakes all the time, just stored or making it into cake pops. So I had just made my chocolate cupcake recipe for the other flavor that I was going to be doing, and it was just like a double chocolate cupcake with a chocolate drizzle on top. When making cookies and cream buttercream, you really want to make sure you grind up like the cookies a lot so then it's not like a really gritty, chunky texture when people are going to be eating it. I know that I've made this a couple of times because people really like cookies and cream, I guess. But like one of the times I made it, I didn't grind it up enough so you could kind of get that little texture from it, but it still generally worked. All I know is that like you can't just like bang out the cookies because you have to really like blend it to get that like fine powder. And then these are the double chocolate cupcakes. One thing with these cupcakes, I have to spray the cupcake liners just so then it doesn't stick because mine, I guess, tend to stick a lot. But then if I spray it too much, the wrapper starts to release from the cupcake. But yeah, these are all the stuff that I made, all finalized and packaged. Currently, I'm just still trying to work on like presentation and how like it visually looks just to make it more appealing. But yeah, I think they still all worked out great. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions, tips, or things you want me to bake in the future, feel free to comment down below and have a blessed week. Bye.